Hello, my name is Hakon and welcome back to my channel and another set of 3 videos for you today in my ongoing series of talking about my own poetry. So the first video in the set is a reading of the poem. The second video is this one where I talk a little bit about it. Could be background, inspiration, technique, interpretation, different aspects of it, all depending. And thirdly, there will also be a musical piece, a song with the poem as lyrics. So the poem we are talking a little bit about today is A Lingering While, which can be found in my poetry collection, Breaths of Time, recently published and available on Amazon, together with my other collections, which is 1994 and 3 Words, available on Amazon worldwide. And of course, the best way right now, I think, to support my channel is to buy a poetry collection for yourself or for a loved one if you like my work and want to support it. And also you might enjoy the poetry, who knows. So this poem is one that brings us back a little bit to some of the ones that I've done before, because again, this is a poem that describes what I often call the sublime moment, the eternal moment, a special connection that you feel that makes you feel the moment so entirely that the past and the future practically ceases to exist for you in that moment. So it feels like the moment lasts forever. That's why I coined the term eternal moments. And this connection seems to be something, in my experience anyway, that you're more likely to get with another person. So you feel there's a special connection with a person. Or it could also be with nature or with a sense of something being bigger and more important than yourself. That you can think of it as in terms of a religious experience, like seeing the Holy Spirit or having a vision of Jesus or whatever it might be, depending on what people actually believe in. But a feeling of that special connection with something or someone that fills the moment entirely. And when it comes to connecting with other people, it could be love at first sight. I mean, that kind of experience. But it isn't necessarily love in the sense that it's romantic love or it's sexual love, I mean, lust, attraction, that kind of thing necessarily. It could also be any kind of human connection with someone else when you feel there is something special in the way you interact, or just something immediate, how you communicate, how you're on the same wavelength with each other right away. It doesn't have to have anything to do with love necessarily, but of course in many of my poems where I describe this kind of feeling, it is to do with the physical or intellectual or whatever kind of attraction for someone of the opposite sex. So in my case, of course, people are different that way. Sometimes people are attracted to their own gender. That's fine. So for me, it's a kind of, I've had this kind of experience in different circumstances, but the one I usually describe in poetry is one that is also a kind of romantic or sexual love kind of attraction. And in this particular poem, I wanted to express not only that there is a moment where you have this kind of connection, but that is also the only moment you get with that person, because for whatever reason you don't you're not able to, or you don't want to maintain that connection for the future. You don't reach out to amplify that connection. You don't try to familiarize yourself or get to know the one you had that connection with. You remain strangers, just as you were before your eyes met. And That's the kind of thing I was going for here. So, in this poem, I'm starting with your lingering gaze. Now, the thing about gazes lingering is that in social interaction between people, and this is something that probably goes back to our sort of pre-human kind of evolution as well, and there is a certain length of time that you hold someone's gaze when you look into their eyes, especially if it's someone you don't know and you see them for the first time. Especially true if it is someone you're not expected to interact with for whatever reasons. And like you're just passing on the street or you're seeing each other across the room or whatever it might be. There's a certain length of time you look into each other's eyes before you look away. And if you don't look away, it can mean different things. It can mean aggression. It can mean kind of creepiness. It can be also be that you are attracted to the other person in some fashion, and you might not know why. And again, it might not have anything to do with love necessarily, but it could be. So yeah. And if that gaze, before it is broken, is accompanied by the glimpse of a smile, especially if it's from both sides, it's almost like it's a kind of it verifies to you that whatever feeling you have, whatever sense of some special connection you get with the other person, is potentially not just unilateral. It's not something that you feel only you, but you get a sense that both of you feel a similar kind of attraction. And then, of course, the poem goes on to say the briefest of touches, whatever that means. That's not clear, of course. That can be so many different things. It could just be a handshake. There are many different ways to shake hands, by the way. So if you want to indicate to someone that you find them attractive, you would shake their hands differently than if you just greet them and say hello. It could be a touch on the shoulder. It could be something else. It's not clear in the poem what that briefest of touches means. It could also mean that you are moving towards each other and you're passing, and just as you're passing, maybe your hands would chance to meet or something like that, and you feel that connection, your hands chance to meet, you move on, you go your separate ways, you never see each other again, but in that moment you had some kind of connection that felt special, that felt like your time stopped and then it starts over again. And so it could be different things like that, and I wanted to write it specifically in a way that was a little bit ambiguous, and it's not clear exactly what's meant by that, both about the length of time and what exactly the interaction is, because it can be so many different things that I think can trigger this kind of experience and sensation and, of course, emotional connection between people. And the second stanza, second verse of the poem it's very simple, just a kind of summary of this idea of the moment, I think. And it says, in that short moment, the past was forgot, the present was ours, but the future was not. Again, it's a bit ambiguous because a lingering while, how long is the lingering while and how long is the short moment? And what exactly goes on in that moment? It can also imply a bit more than just the brief connection, but of course it does actually say the briefest of touches, but then again, that's again all relative. So it has a kind of analogy in a slightly longer moment, but the main thing is, I think, that I'm trying to express here, especially by saying the future was not, is that not only I'm talking about the moment itself, but I'm also talking about the fact that in this case, these two people who connect in a special kind of way for a lingering while, no more and no less, Um, once that lingering while, once that brief, that short moment is over, these two people go their separate ways and they never see each other again. Nothing was done to extend that moment. They don't try to get to know each other, they don't exchange phone numbers, etc. They don't learn each other's names necessarily or anything like that. There's nothing in the poem about talking, but of course that doesn't preclude talking from having taken place. But the idea I had for the poem was that these two people feel a strong, immediate connection for each other, and they enjoy that connection fully. They don't want to ruin it either by potentially by trying to prolong it, because that's another thing when you have really strong emotions, strong sensations, strong connections with something. If you then contrive to make those things last longer, sometimes something of that magic can be lost, especially if the initial reaction is such a strong one. And I think that it's not necessarily a bad thing sometimes to just let something go, and then you have that moment and you didn't let anything else ruin the memory of it. But of course, it is a double-edged sword there. There is also the potential, of course, that you may have lost that opportunity of something even greater. Because when you have that connection, which could be a kind of a potential for romantic love, something that soulmate, if you believe in that kind of thing, someone who's if you have that immediate kind of connection, what if you actually developed it, it turned into something even greater, someone who could have been a partner for life, and but you let them go. Both of you almost like you both have the connection, you both choose to let it go um, after that brief moment is over. So, and I've had several experiences in my life where I've felt in a similar kind of way to this. It's been a few. I'm thinking maybe two or three times where I've felt an immediate connection with someone. I'm not sure what it is, and a kind of combination of shyness and perhaps being a bit scared of trying too hard, or not sure what I would find if I try to get closer to this person or find out more about them, that I just let it go and just leave it at that. That moment is what I get. So in hindsight, whether that's a good or a bad thing is hard to tell, because those are the ones that got away, and I will never know. But it's one of those things that is nice to think about sometimes and try to sort of muse over what would have been, what could have been. There's absolutely no way of telling, because sometimes these moments are so brief that there's not much to go on. It's people who are complete strangers, and yet in that moment there was a connection as if they were the person you knew as well as you knew yourself. And that's what the poem is about, as far as I'm concerned, inspired by a few different experiences of my own life. And technique wise, not much to say about this one. I guess a very simple rhythmic layouts, very simple lyrical poem. A few rhymes, not too many. I think one of my favorite ways of writing poetry is to only have two lines rhyme in each verse. So that's the second and the fourth, normally in a 4-line verse. And you will also notice in the first verse you have a bit of assonance going on as well inside the lines, lingering, glimpse, brief, and lingering again. And of course, in the second verse, I also have this I'm not sure what it's called as a rhetorical device, but when you're sort of using a kind of contrast of different things that are mutually exclusive, so past, present, and future. It could be past and future as well. It could be yesterday and tomorrow. It could be black and white. It's a kind of a contrasting effect. And you put these contrasting terms in juxtaposition with each other to create a kind of nice effect from it. So past, present, future in that order and coming together. It's probably called something special, but I can't. I'm not sure what the term is. But that's one of those things you do in poetry as well. You try to often to do in poetry where you put these things together that creates these little contrasts. And I think that's all I wanted to say about it. And I hope you enjoyed this little video, that you enjoyed my recitation of it, and also that you will enjoy the song if you listen to that as well. It's actually one of my favorites. I was trying to create a kind of minimalist piano accompaniment to it when I was prompting for this one. I used an AI, I used Udio for this one as well. But I quite liked how it came out. So enjoy that, and I'll see you next time, and goodbye for now.